are your best tricks or techniques or the thing you found most effective for yourself when you do notice that you don't have your A game? You've come with your B or maybe even your C game, and there's not much you can do to fix that right now. Having some of these long shifts is probably an example. Like, I am really tired. I'm running on empty. I'm stressed. There's X, Y, and Z happening. What do you do to adjust to that? How do you make sure you can perform even when you only have your B game with you?
You know, it's funny. There's just simple little tricks that I tell myself to get myself mentally ready to enter that building. And it's one of the tricks that I have is I actually have one of the components of my password to sign on to my computer is reminding myself that I'm fit, I'm trained, and I'm ready. And it's the One Warrior's Creed. And for some reason, it doesn't matter if I've not slept. It doesn't matter if I got crappy news from my boss or I didn't do well on the last call. It's reminding myself that at the end of the day, I have trained thousands of hours to be here, and my B game is probably still going to be good enough. And I've reminded myself before I start every shift, because I can't get onto my computer unless I remind myself I'm fit, I'm trained, and I'm ready, and I'm here to do this. So it's not every day is an A game, but that is okay because it's going to be enough. And on days where maybe it isn't enough because those stresses have gotten me to the point where I'm not confident that it's enough, maybe that's a day that I need to say, look, I shouldn't be here today. And I think it's also giving yourself permission to maybe, if you haven't slept for 2 days and you're not capable and competent, stepping into that building and saving a life or saving your partner's life or dealing with what's in front of you, maybe that's a day you need to take a time out and address that. So I think it's just giving yourself permission to not be in the best, but doing everything you can to be your best. So.
Yeah. It's a great, without putting too much of a psychologist's hat on, the concept of acceptance and commitment is really what you've just described there. Like, yeah, I'm not good, but I'm committed to doing this. And I know that it's probably going to be okay, and not stressing out about not being on your A game. Brian, have you got anything to add to that question? I'm sure you get asked that a lot in your seminars when we're trying to lead from the front, when we are trying to perform in these environments that are hostile, chaotic, unpredictable. What's the best way when we enter there, regardless of whether we do have our A, B, or C game, explain to someone that you did it, or you would describe, here's the best that I've heard and the best approach that I can recommend?
Well, I'm going to go back to what's important now. And what's important now is that you prepare in advance for these events. Is the time to prepare mentally and physically for that event is, as you well know, is not at the time. So this is why the practice becomes so important. What's important now on the way to that call is to, if I'm finding myself getting jacked up, is there's things like breathing that I can do. I can run through that checklist, or with my partner, we can have that conversation. Okay, so we're going to this. What's your job? What are you thinking about? What decisions might you have to make? What are you worried about? What could go wrong? So that we can use some of those questions to prepare ourselves in advance, so that we've thought about what could go wrong. We've had this conversation. I might do that by myself, or I might do it with my partner while we're going there, so that when we get there and we're going into this to clear this warehouse, or we're going into an active killer event, or we're going into whatever the situation is, we've already got some clarity and we're focused on what's important now. So if I focus on what's important now, I can set that other stuff aside, or I can ruminate about, man, this is a really shitty time. I'm really tired. The Sarge was chewing my ass out. And so that's why that question, I think, is so powerful, that if we get into the habit, the practice of that question, then we can use it on the way. I think the other thing from a preparation standpoint is to understand that we can take the power of little things. You read 10 minutes a day of a nonfiction book. You do that every day. You're going to read 10 or 12 nonfiction books a year. You train 10 minutes a day, 4 days a week, 48 weeks out of the year. That's 32 hours extra training a year. If you do it 5 days a week, that's 40 hours of extra training a year. I don't have to do 2 hours in my workout. If I can do an intense workout in 20 minutes, we have this tendency to want to make big things out of it. And when we can chunk it down and chunk the event down, I think that's helpful. But I go back to what's important now and have people have that conversation and that thought on the way. And what it does is it sets the other stuff aside and allows me to focus on what's important in this particular moment at this particular call.
It's a common refrain for coaches of experts, which you obviously are, is the ability to direct your attention That's really what good coaching is, what good teaching is, and really what good or expert operators do, is they put their attention on the most tangible and valuable things in any given moment. And so that's rather than thinking about your emotions. We talk a lot, I'll mention a lot, and people who listen to the show will have heard me say this before. The game doesn't give a shit how you feel. The criminal doesn't give a shit how you feel. That whatever obstacle that you're facing right now doesn't care about your feelings, so you don't need to either in that moment. Not saying we don't talk about it at some time, but in that moment, paying attention to how you feel is distracting, to say the least.
And I've heard you talk about this concept that attention is the currency of performance. And I think what's the important thing is for people like yourself that are high performance coaches is to teach, say, an athlete what to pay attention to. So we can tell an officer you need to have situational awareness. But what does that mean? If they do not know what to attend to, if I do not know where to put my attention, then my attention is going to be bouncing all over the place or focused on the wrong things. Because as Professor Paul Taylor will say, is people will pay attention to what's important to them in the moment. And in hindsight bias, we often criticize, well, you should have been paying attention to this. But a lot of times we tell people the importance of attention, but I think what great coaches like yourself do is they teach them what to pay attention to. And that becomes critical. So that, that's what vision coaches in baseball do. They teach a batter what to pay attention to. They teach a fielder what to pay attention to, because you can't pay attention to everything. Yeah. So I think that's part of the coaching piece is we need to understand the importance of attention, but then help them to understand what to attend to help them prepare for that.